Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to a new video, guys. So today, guys, I wanted to do a little Afterburner test with the GT1030 because I've tried to do videos of this in the past, and I know some people are probably like, well, this is a really old card. It can't really do nothing, But I've actually been testing this card for a while, running some games on it on my main computer with a Ryzen 5 3400 on it. And of course, I've got my Afterburner set up here. I got monitoring and all that stuff set up. So I'm going to take you guys through a couple of games. Some games will run good, some games will run bad. But all in all, this card is only a 2 gig card, so you're not supposed to be able to play modern AAA titles. You have to set your expectations to what it is, to the predicament or to the area that you're at. Because of course, the GT1030 is an old card, even well, not necessarily old, but from 2017. But it's a small card. It doesn't have a lot of power to it, but it still can do some gaming. Some, let's say, Xbox 360 to PS3 era in 720p. You can do some gaming, and I'll show you guys some of those games. But like I said, you're not going to be able to run Cyberpunk 2077 or um, I think you can even run GTA 5. I don't have that installed right now, and I'm not going to, but you can't run the newest games on this card, but you can do some gaming on it and even run emulators. So I'm going to take you guys through that and show you guys what that's all about. All right, so here we are in 7 Days to Die. We are running on low settings, 720p. Can you guys see this here? We have upscaler mode. Let's turn that off. I don't know why that keeps doing that. So we're getting an average of about 30 FPS, but in my opinion, you can game on this in 30 FPS. You can do it in 60, or you can't do it in 60, I'm sorry. Um, but for me personally, like I said, it's mostly the view distance. Like I said, a lot of the things with this card is that it's the view distance. If something has a lot of textures and a lot of, particles, that's what the problem is that it can't load it all because this is only a 2 gig card. If it was 4 gigs, it'd probably be able to do a little bit better. So yeah. But 23 FPS. I've gotten used to playing this game before like this because I used to play this game on my GTX 970, and I was probably playing in 30 FPS and didn't even know it. So yeah, but this is totally gameable. It's still it's still fluid. It has a little bit of stuttering, but I totally think I could game like this. And have no problem with it. It just depends on what your preference is. If you can't game like this, then like I said, I've gotten used to potato gaming. So but this game came out 2013, I think, or 2012, 2013. So yeah, but yeah, it's unfortunately not good because this is once again a low profile card. It can't run this game because it needs more video memory. So yeah, but I think it's playable. Where's the zombie at? Let's go. Rah! It drops frames. Ah! And you're dead. So I dropped frames, sadly. But yeah. But this is one of those games that, you don't need to have a high FPS, I don't think, to play it. I could get used to playing like this, but that's just me. But yeah, no, most people would not want to play in, 20 to 30 FPS ranges. So yeah. So this is another game that struggles mostly because of the view distance and the trees and stuff like that. These kind of games, so I wouldn't be testing like Fortnite or Apex or even PUBG because that card would just struggle on those games. So yeah. So here we are in Left 4 Dead. I'm running this in 720p. We have it set to, let's see, advanced settings, high. And not only that, we have reshade running in the background. Adaptive sharpen, blooming HDR, fidelity contrast sharpening. And we're getting 60 FPS. So it's doing pretty well. So yeah, this is one of those games because it doesn't have a lot of things to load. It actually looks pretty good with reshade on. So yeah. But yeah, this gun this game, not gun, this game runs pretty well. Um, especially, you know, for an old game like this. This is actually, like I said, it's running reshade, and it's not struggling at all. It's actually doing pretty well. Now, when I do reshade, I don't really run a whole lot of extra stuff, you know. But I mean, like, even if I wanted to, I could literally turn off the thing and just do regular, and we're getting over 100 FPS, almost 200 FPS. I mean, you could just see that this game runs phenomenally, even in today, on a 2 gig card, mostly because it's an old game. But if you're used to old school 360 gaming, you know, this runs, and this will run it, no problem. So yeah, runs pretty well. So that is with it all. That's regular, and this is with a reshade on. So you can see it does drop the FPS by like more than half, but it's still running past 60 FPS, and it does very well. You know, so on a GT 1030, I didn't think that I was going to actually be able to run reshade. It just depends on what certain games there are, and if they actually have, you know, a high view distance, or if they have like a lot of things to render in. But this is on a 2 gig card, and you know, I think it looks pretty good. So it's doing pretty well. A lot of color, a lot of brightness, you know, the sharpening, the bloom looks great. You know, and then we do that. Then we turn it off. Boring. Awesome. Ah! Ah! But yeah, that is Left 4 Dead. And it runs great. Alright, so here we are in Fallout 3. We are actually running reshade on this as well. We've got blooming and HDR and stuff like that. And it looks really good, but we only have 30 FPS. This is in 720p with high settings. So I'm actually going to put original back on there. And we do get 40 FPS. I was running this in full screen mode earlier, and it got 60 FPS, but I don't like running games in full screen mode. But this is totally gameable, you know, if you wanted to play this. So yeah. So yeah, totally gameable in this state. I'm terrible at Fallout, so yeah. But totally runs perfectly fine on a 2 gig card. This game can't run reshade, unfortunately, but if you run it in low settings, you can. Because like I said, I was running this in 60 FPS. In full screen mode, I don't know how I was doing that, but yeah, you can see the frame rate went up there. But as soon as I turn on the reshade and I put the other one on, the frame rate drops. Yeah, but I like this reshade. It's actually one of my favorite ones because it adds a lot of glow to the game. I don't even want to know what it looks like. Oh, actually, no, it doesn't look too bad. Yeah, no. So this is one of the reshade presets that I have. One of the few games that I have reshade installed on with. But it does not work with the GT 1030, so we just can run it on normal settings. That's fine. You probably won't be running this with reshade on anyways if you're running with a 2 gig card. So that's totally fine. But it is definitely gameable, you know, still. I mean, this is another old game. Like I said, you would mostly be playing, you know, early 360 to PS3 era games on a GT 1030. You know, you don't need to have the best graphics to play these games. So you have to set your expectations to a certain level with these games. Yeah. Ah! Gun jam! And off with your head. And your leg. I don't know why your leg came off, but... yeah, you guys can see. Totally gameable. And definitely doable. Like I said, you don't have to have a high FPS. You could run this game at 30 FPS and it would be perfectly fine. You see, when I die, it goes up to 60, so it's kind of goofy. But yeah, it's totally gameable. You know, 720p high settings. So yeah. Alright, so here we are in Call of Duty Black Ops Zombies. This is running Reshade, and unfortunately I'm having to run this in 800 by 600 because, for whatever reason, because of the GT 1030, every time I try to install it and put it in 720p, the game crashes. It's probably something to do with with putting the other card in. I can't, it's also making me run the game in safe mode. So yeah. So it does drop some frames, but this is also in high settings. And like I said, this is also running Reshade. So let's see. We got a few things going. See if I can find the other one. If I turn it all off. You know, like this is what it looks like when it's not on. But yeah. I personally like it with Reshade on because it gives it more color. So yeah. So yeah, it runs good, you know, but unfortunately I have to run it in 800 by 600 because for whatever reason the game just won't let me put it in 720p. But all in all, the game still runs fine. You know, this is another old school game from 2011 that can run it perfectly fine, no issues. So yeah, give me this.
Get my children. I am coming.
Alrighty, so here we are in Dead Space 1, and I actually do have Reshade running on this. Now this is running in, you know, the standard 720p settings. Let's get the visuals going up. You know, VSync is turned on. You can't run this game, unfortunately, because I only have a 60 hertz monitor. High settings, everything is turned on. So, you know, everything's set to high. And unfortunately, this game can only run at 30 FPS because, you know, I only have a 60 hertz monitor. If I had a 144 hertz monitor, I could probably run this game at 60 FPS, but I cannot because I don't have one of those. Because this is one of those old games that is kind of stupid. I don't know why they have it like that, but you know that's just one of those things that you know I still need to upgrade. So yeah, but this is running Reshade, and you know the 30 it's gonna be locked to 30 FPS unless I like get it set to an area where it can't handle it. So yeah, what the hell? There we go. I don't know why you couldn't do that. Because also, if you've never known this about the Dead Space 1 game, is that if you turn VSync off, the game becomes unplayable. So, yeah. Let's go down here. But even so, like you can see, like this game will run perfectly fine. It'll run no problem. This is with Reshade turned on, and I'll show you guys in just a moment. Just give me a moment. So yeah, you guys can see that, like I said, it's running, and I actually want to show you guys the Reshade setup. So I've got adaptive sharpen blooming HDR, and contrast brightness and saturation have been turned up. And I like this setup. I call it the 4K setup, and then this is original Reshade. Like I said, it still runs perfectly fine. And this is the CRT setup that I love using. Oh, how nice. He's being very slow. And this is the other CRT setup that I have. I kind of like these CRT setups on this game. I don't know why. Just one of those things that I like. But yeah, this is totally gameable. And, you know, 2026. You know, of course, you definitely cannot play the remake of this game if you tried running on a GT 1030. You might be able to get away with it if you have it on a 4 gig card, like I said, but because they only have 2 gigs, there's not much you can work with. But this is an old game from 2008. It can run it just fine, and you can run it with reshade set to high. So yeah, it looks pretty, and it runs great. Now, if I had a better monitor, of course, I'd be able to run it better, but that's one thing I still need to upgrade is I need to get a 144 hertz monitor. I have this old AOC monitor. I've had it forever, so yeah. So, anyways, yeah. And here we are in Dead Space 2, running high settings and also running reshade. And this is probably one of my favorite reshade setups that I get to use because it just looks so good. And I actually did a playthrough of this recently with this on. So yeah, get out of my way. But this is on high settings, 720p. And even like I said, we're even running reshade, you know. So those are my settings. If you want to take a snapshot, you can look at them. But you know, even so, like we're getting over 60 FPS. So, you know, this game you can have VSync turned off and it'll run great. Ah! Stop trying to stab me in the eye. No, I will not make us whole. Go away. You're not here. I'm a crazy man. Yeah. As you guys can see, yeah, the game is running perfectly fine at this rate. You know, running nice and smooth, no issues. And like I said, this even runs reshade, so I bet if I turned reshade off, let's see. Custom 1. Let's see. Original. So this is with original. We get over 100 FPS. Well, was it? But you see how drab and ugh, no color, looks stupid. Let's put our reshade preset on. Boom. Now she's got some color. It does turn the. It of course does bring the FPS down, but you know this is perfectly fine. You can still game like this, no issues. So yeah. I hear you, you little bat. Ugh. Hate the stalkers. These things are annoying. Ugh. Still don't like that. So yeah.
Data, I'm locked out. There's something in the church. It broke the door.
Hang on, I'll try to override all the gates from the area.
Hurry. There's something out here too.
Alright, let's see if I can get through this little part here just for you guys. Alright. I didn't even realize it was writing right there. Yeah. Come on. Come on. How do you not die? He literally walked right by the damn thing. I'm terrible at fighting against stalkers for whatever reason. Ah, see, this is exactly why I hate these things. But you guys can see we're running perfectly fine. We're not struggling at all. It runs great, you know, it really does. So yeah, like I said, it can run at 30 FPS in this game, and you even have reshade turned on, and it runs great. So yeah.
Can you do anything from your end?
Let me see what I can do.
So here we are in Resident Evil 4. We are running this on 720p windowed mode. Everything is turned off, obviously, because mostly you have to deal with, you know, the problems of dealing with, you know, having to run. You can even see like certain areas, like it'll run slow because of the you know, the lighting and stuff like that. So it has some stuttering, but once you get past that, it can get past it no problem. So yeah. So it has some stuttering, but like I said, this is running in low settings, but standard. It's mostly because it's a 2 gig card. If it had, 4 gigs, it'd probably run perfectly fine. So yeah, that's the only downside to it. Okay, that just phased through the wall. Why did that happen? And everybody blows up. You can see there that that dropped it down to 30 FPS. But even so, like this game is still usable at 30 FPS. And well, I'm dead. But you guys get the idea. This is running in low settings, like I said, so standard 720p. So it can stutter in some areas. Most of that's because it has to render in a lot of other um, things, and also because it's a 2 gig card. If it was 4 gigs, it would have no problem. So yeah. So here we are in Resident Evil 5. We are running this in 1440p in high settings. And I'm running this in the sequence with the lickers just because this is where I can get a lot of shooting on and really stress the card out. And, even if it runs down, 50 FPS, this game is totally still playable in that area. You don't need a lot of FPS. You can even run this in 30 FPS because this game does have the frame lock limiter built into it. We can either do 30 or 60 FPS. I have it set to unlimited, and I have it set to the highest settings I can get it on without it dropping. Like I said, it goes down to 50, but I mean that's totally fine because when this game first came out on the Xbox 360, it was 30 FPS. So. But this is just show you. Look at that. See, we're even dipping up to 100 right there just for the cutscenes. Final standoff. I kind of wish I could actually give Shiva the Gatling gun as well. But yeah, see that we can stress it out with all of these bodies and stuff, and you can see it's doing pretty well. See, even on the cutscenes, it dips up to all the way up to 100 FPS. So yeah, so you guys can see. Oh, I even got an achievement: defeat 30 enemies with a Gatling gun. I didn't realize I hadn't used the Gatling gun on the PC version of the game. This is my first time actually using it on this version. I mostly used it on the Xbox 360 version, but yeah, this is 1440p high settings, unlimited frame rate, so if you wanted to lock it to 60, you could totally do that, but I always run it unlimited. And this also has motion blur and anti-aliasing turned on, so yeah. So here we are in the forest. Now this game I had to run in 800 by 600 on low settings because most of the issues are because of the trees and the rendering of all of those heavy textures. We got everything running on low settings. You can't really see it because of the display and stuff like that, but everything is set to low in here. And you can play it this way, but it's not fun. I never really liked playing in box in 4:3 aspect ratio or 1:1. Originally, I was running this in 720p, and it was only getting about 20 to 30 FPS in an open area. We're gonna actually go back into the area here, but I think anything above 30 FPS, this game is playable in that range because this is an older title. It doesn't need to run in 60 FPS if you don't want to run it um, that high. But yeah, like as soon as you get into this area, the frame rate starts dropping because it has to render in all these trees, and this is all set to low. So yeah, this is one of those older titles, but because of how much stuff it has to render, it's not good. But it is playable, but you'd have to run everything on low settings, and of course run it in 8:6 or one by one. So yeah, that's the forest. Not a good experience. So there you guys go. Now, like I said, this is only a 2 gig card. It's not going to be able to do a lot of gaming on high settings, but if you set your expectations low, you can still get some pretty good gaming out of it if you are a OG gamer like me and you don't care about playing the newest titles and you have one of these cards laying around and you want to throw it in a computer like an old Dell Office PC, it can totally game with it. And yeah, so yeah, just keep in mind that if depending on how many gigs that card has is what's going to actually limit you or you know advance how well you're going to be able to play the game. But like I said, just keep your expectations to a certain degree. And for like I said, the GT 1030, I would say it's 720p, medium settings in let's say the Xbox 360 and PS3 era is what I would say. Keep it in that sort of area. That way you don't have to have too high expectations because, like I said, this is an old card from 2017. It doesn't really have much power to it, but like I said, you can still do a lot of gaming on this card. So yeah. So, anyways, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you guys next time.